loud in classrooms before school or lunchtimes, sometimes shivering in shirt sleeves. Even when it was snowing, the hierarchy took their warm, non-uniform clothing. A colleague and I used to have kids as lookouts so they could wear non-uniform items in cold classrooms, whipping them off if the DP came down the corridor. Uniforms are just another means of alienating kids from education. Get rid of them. Another one here, Donna Intero says, uniforms are a part of everyday life. Look around, they are everywhere. I'm a bus driver and I wear one. Leo says, school uniforms, they are great. All kids dress the same, whether they are rich or poor. Uniform costs are reasonable compared to the branded clothes that kids want. So there's a real variety of responses. Helen says, I bought second-hand uniforms for my children. Skirts, tops, jerseys, shirts, shorts certainly helped our 5 children family budget. Most schools have second-hand uniform shops, so quite the range of responses there. Julia Whaiputi and Neil Miller with me this afternoon on the panel. Now to this, finally, the owner of a vegan cafe in Palmerston North is in shock after being flooded with negative reviews online. The bad reviews started piling after a mum who visited the cafe slammed them on social media for having a nappy ban in the toilets. The woman took a photo of a sign on the door that read, "This is not a nappy changing station. If you require those facilities, the plaza will be able to accommodate you much better. Just remember, the people who have to clean that mess are the same people who serve you food." Then she posted a photo of the sign in a local parenting group online and it went gangbusters. The cafe's owner says it's a misunderstanding. The sign was part of the cafe's goal of being zero waste, that disposable nappies are hard to get rid of in a sustainable way. What do you think about this story? To both of you, Julia, do you spare a thought for the cafe owner who tried to get rid of the disposable nappy thing, or do you think it was misunderstanding? What do you reckon?
I think it's their misunderstanding, and it highlights a problem I think that exists around elitism that can exist with some people who are like, you need to be so enviro-friendly and do all of that without taking into account the cost and choice and ability for people to do that. It's not always possible. People don't always have the time to buy disposable. Whilst it's something to be aspire to, if that's what you're up to, that you can't impose that kind of value on people. You want things to be accessible to children and families. You can encourage waste-free, but I think that's a step way too far. And this response isn't a surprise, but hopefully they take it as an opportunity to engage with why it's a problem.
And I think the cafe's trying to be a waste-free business. How do you read this particular item, Neil?
Well, I'm not an expert on vegan cafes or nappy changing, but look, my thoughts are this. I support the right of business owners to establish their own rules about what can and cannot be done in their business. And in this particular case, there was a dedicated nappy changing facility and not very far away. And so I think it's actually reasonable for the owner to say, well, you should use that and then we'll make you a tofu pikelet or whatever they serve there. So, yeah, that's my take on it. I think the business owner is being shamed. I think this is an example of social media being used to pile on to a legitimate business, and I would actually go there just to support them.
Well, okay. Hey, you've both been wonderful this afternoon, so I appreciate your company. Julia Whaiputi and Neil Miller, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thanks, Wallace.
Kia ora.
All right, and I'm Wallace Chapman. See you tomorrow, 3:45. And thanks to Danielle for putting the show together. See ya.
That was good. Have a good story.
Te whakarongo mai koe ki te reo irirangi o Aotearoa. This is Checkpoint on RNZ National. I'm Lisa Owen. E haere nei, former LA Lakers player and basketball legend Kobe Bryant is killed in a fiery helicopter crash with 8 other people, including one of his daughters. We crossed to the scene of the accident north of Los Angeles, where investigations are underway. It's not a question of if, but rather when coronavirus reaches our shores, so are we prepared? And what about New Zealanders essentially trapped in Wuhan, ground zero for the illness? We talked to one of them. New Zealand First MP Shane Jones is accused of arrogant, dirty politics, bullying and sexism. A long list of Wahine signed a petition warning him to watch his mouth. The future of Australia's bats hangs in the balance too.
RNZ News at 5. Kia ora, ko Susana Leata with DNA. The death toll from China's coronavirus outbreak has jumped to 80, and the country's National Health Commission says the ability of the virus to spread still appears to be strengthening. So far, it has affected more than 2,750 people, most of them in China. The Chinese Health Minister Ma Xiaowei says the infections are at a crucial stage of containment. A New Zealander trapped at the epicentre of the outbreak is pleading with the government to do more to get New Zealanders out. The woman, who works in New York and has asked not to be named, travelled to Wuhan a week ago to visit her father for the Chinese New Year. She's now stuck there and hasn't left the house for 5 days for fear of catching the virus. She says she's contacted New Zealand officials twice, but was told to just register online and await further details.
I feel a little disappointed since many other countries are taking actions already, but it seems like the New Zealand government is falling behind.
A New Zealander in Wuhan. In this country, health officials are continuing to track 3 Chinese tourists in Rotorua who may have been exposed to the virus. The group arrived in Rotorua from Australia on Saturday after being on the same flight to Sydney as an infected person. Health correspondent Rowan Quinn reports.
New Zealand health authorities tracked the trio down and had them assessed, first by ambulance staff, then at Rotorua Hospital. The Lakes DHB says they had no symptoms of a virus, so were released. However, health officials are keeping in touch with them. The Director General of Health, Ashley Bloomfield, says it's highly likely the virus will reach New Zealand, but it's very unlikely it will cause an outbreak. Call Rowan Quinn, DNA.
Queenstown Lakes Mayor Jim Bolt is calling for compassion and calm during the outbreak. Mr Bolt says he's been advised of some anti-visitor sentiment in the wake of the outbreak, and the community needs to unite to show zero tolerance to racism and xenophobia. A group of Māori women want an apology from Shane Jones for calling the Ihu Mātau protest leader Pania Newton a young putiputi, meaning young flower, and questioning her mana. Almost 100 wāhine Māori have released a statement saying the Cabinet Minister's remarks made during his visit to Rātana last week were sexist and offensive. One of the signatories, Huhana Hiki, says Mr Jones should apologise.
Yes, he's a politician, but that's not appropriate. And in our world, we like to kanohi people, sit down and talk to them if we have a raru with them. And he didn't do any of that. He just made a media statement that was quite dismissive, condescending and a little bit insulting.
Huhana Hiki. Shane Jones has declined to comment. Waiheke residents are being warned the worst is yet to come as water shortages continue to plague the island. One resident says the situation is getting desperate as almost all properties depend on tank and rainwater. Katie Doyle reports.
Bob Upchurch says long-term residents are accustomed to conserving water in summer, but newer residents still seem to be using more water than necessary. He says tourists are also causing problems because they don't seem to be interested in conserving water when they're paying top dollar to stay. However, Mr Upchurch says residents are making good use of the emergency water bores, where they can take up to 20 litres each. 2 emergency stations are now open at the Onetangi Sports Park and Matiatia Car Park. Ko Katie Doyle, tēnei.
R&B singer Lizzo has kicked off American music's biggest night, the Grammy Awards, by dedicating it to Kobe Bryant. The 41-year-old basketball great was killed today in a helicopter crash in California, along with his 13-year-old daughter Gianna and 7 others. Lizzo told the crowd tonight is for Kobe. It's 4 minutes past 5. South Africa have taken an unassailable 2-0 lead in the 3-match one-day cricket series against the New Zealand women's side, winning Game 2 in Auckland today by 8 wickets. Batting first, the White Ferns could muster just 115, Susie Bates top scoring with 38, and the visitors had little trouble chasing down the target in 24 overs. Game 3 is in Hamilton on Thursday. More tributes are pouring in for Kobe Bryant. Fellow basketball great Michael Jordan says he was like a little brother to him, while former US President Barack Obama says he was a legend. Golfing great Tiger Woods has described Bryant's death as unbelievably sad. Controversial Australian tennis player Nick Kyrgios isn't baiting world number 1 Rafael Nadal ahead of their match for a place in the Australian Open quarterfinals tonight. Kyrgios' record against the Spanish legend is one of the best on tour, having won 3 out of his 7 encounters with the 19 times Grand Slam champion.
I'm super excited, honestly. Playing one of the greatest tennis players on centre court at your own slam is pretty damn cool. I feel like I kind of know what game plan I need to bring to be successful against him, but everyone knows his patterns, but he executes them at the highest level. I mean, I just like playing lefties.
The Australian tennis player Nick Kyrgios. That's the news.
Breaking news, an NBA star is killed in a helicopter crash.
It is being reported by various media outlets in the United States, including Variety and TMZ, that the retired basketball star Kobe Bryant has been killed in a helicopter crash this morning.
The coronavirus is more dangerous than previously thought.
I woke up feeling quite desperate, sad, angry. Most of this is because of a lack of information and a lack of knowing what's going on.
News as it happens. Morning Report, weekdays from 6 on air and online.
Now the short forecast from Met Service to midnight tomorrow. Northland, Auckland, Waikato, Coromandel, Bay of Plenty, Taupo and Taihape. Mainly fine weather. Isolated showers from tomorrow afternoon, possibly thundery about Taupo and Taihape. Waitomotu, Whanganui, including Taumaranui, fine spells. Cloudy with patchy drizzle morning and night. Isolated showers inland from tomorrow afternoon. Gisborne and Hawke's Bay mainly fine, isolated afternoon and evening showers inland, possibly thundery tomorrow. Manawatu to Wellington, mostly cloudy, patchy drizzle morning and night. Wairarapa fine, however cloudy areas and patchy drizzle for the Tararua district. Nelson and Marlborough fine apart from isolated showers about the ranges tomorrow. Bulla, Westland and Fiordland mostly cloudy, occasional rain or drizzle. Canterbury and Otago mostly cloudy about the coast. Fine spells inland, isolated showers tomorrow. Southland, cloudy periods and isolated showers, however rain for Stewart Island, clearing tomorrow morning. Chatham Islands, cloudy, patchy drizzle at night. RNZ National, it's 7 minutes past 5.
Thanks, Susanna. And this is Checkpoint. I'm Lisa Owen. The world is tonight mourning a basketball legend after former NBA star Kobe Bryant and his 13-year-old daughter Gianna were killed in a helicopter crash, along with 7 others this morning. The 41-year-old was accompanying his daughter to her basketball game in Los Angeles when a witness describes their helicopter exploding mid-air before crashing to the ground, killing all 9 on board. Bryant's NBA career for the LA Lakers spanned 20 years before his retirement in 2016. He was also an NBA MVP, an Olympian, and the first professional athlete to win an Oscar. His illustrious career wasn't all plain sailing, though. In 2003, he was charged with sexual assault after he was accused of rape by a hotel employee. The charges were later dropped after an out-of-court settlement was reached. As Bridget Burke reports, his death has shocked the world and tributes continue to flow for the father of 4, from sports stars to performance artists and presidents.
Darkness at the Pepsi Stadium in Denver today as the Houston Rockets prepared for their game against the Denver Nuggets.
Ladies and gentlemen, basketball fans, a tragedy has befallen the world of basketball. Earlier today, at the age of 41, Kobe Bryant was killed in a helicopter crash. In 20 seasons with the Lakers, Kobe was a 17-time All-Star, 2-time NBA Finals MVP, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and 5-time NBA champion. The NBA and the game of basketball will mourn this loss together. Please join us in a moment of silence for Kobe Bryant. Rest in peace, Mamba.
Across the United States, fans gathered to pay tribute to basketball legend Kobe Bryant, nicknamed Black Mamba, following his death in a helicopter crash at 9:40 local time this morning in deteriorating weather.
I heard some noise, actually helicopter noise. It was very low flying and it was foggy day. You can't tell what kind of helicopter was that, what color. But I see it was very low and struggling the engine. You can't see, tell it was not really running right there, you know what I mean? Right. And take 20 seconds, I heard some explosion.
The 41-year-old, who won 5 NBA championships and 2 Olympic gold medals, was killed along with his daughter Gianna. The pair, along with 7 others, were on their way to the 13-year-old's basketball practice at the Mumba Academy in Thousand Oaks, where they had been expected around midday. The chopper burst into flames mid-air, crashing into a hillside in Calabasas, California. The United States Federal Aviation Administration and the National Transport Safety Board launched an immediate investigation into the tragedy. NTSB board member Jennifer Jimenez said a team of 18 would look at what caused the chopper to crash.
Our team will be looking at the history of the pilot and whatever crew was on board. We'll be looking at maintenance records of the helicopter. We will be looking at records of the owner and operator of the helicopter and a number of other things that we look at as part of the investigation.
Jerry West, who was instrumental in signing a 17-year-old Kobe Bryant to the LA Lakers, said today he felt like he'd lost a son.
As his career blossomed and he started to establish just an enormous reputation as a player and also filled with accomplishments. But his charisma on top of it was something that most great players don't have, and he had it. But to wake up to this news, this has been one of the most horrible days of my life. I felt like I've lost a son, and frankly not doing very well.
Abdul-Jabbar, the all-time NBA scoring leader and former LA Laker, posted online his heartfelt prayers to Bryant's parents, wife Vanessa, and 3 surviving daughters aged from 7 months to 17. Wearing a long-sleeved LA Lakers t-shirt, he said he'd known Bryant since he was a child.
I was friends with his dad, Joe. We were former adversaries. Joe played for the 76ers. But he was a good friend and someone that I shared a friendship. And it's hard for me to understand now how this is affecting Joe and his wife. So to Kobe's family, I want to send my most sincere and heartfelt regrets and prayers, and my thoughts are with you guys. Kobe was an incredible family man. He loved his wife and daughters. He was an incredible athlete and a leader in a lot of ways. He inspired a whole generation of young athletes. He was one of the first ones to leave high school and come into the NBA and do so well, dominating the game and becoming one of the best scorers that the Los Angeles Lakers has ever seen. I had the privilege of being there when he scored his 81-point game, and it was something that I will always remember as one of the highlights of the things that I have learned and observed in sports. Kobe, my thoughts are with you. Absolutely. Rest in peace, young man. This loss it's just hard to comprehend. Go with God.
Thousands of shocked fans gathered to pay tribute to Bryant's 20-year career with the Lakers outside the team's home stadium, the Staples Center, where the Grammy Awards was being held today. They also laid flowers near the scene of the crash.
It's a huge loss to the sports field alone. I mean, just the sport genre, basketball, football, the athleticism, determination, the passion, the grit and grind that he's shown that can be done if you put your mind to it. You won't see another player like him again.
I heard one of his daughters was on board, which is even the worst thing to ever think about. I mean, having a young girl that, can't even live past high school or even middle school. It's crazy to even think about. You haven't even seen the world the way it's supposed to be. It's just sad.
I'm just at a loss for words right now because this person, Kobe Bryant, has done major impacts in my life, and to just, always look up to him since I was a child.
World leaders and Bryant's former teammates took to social media to pay tribute. US President Donald Trump tweeted Bryant's death was terrible news. Former President Barack Obama tweeted Kobe was a legend on the court and just getting started in what would have been just as meaningful a second act. Shaquille O'Neal expressed his love for his former teammate. There's no words to express the pain I'm going through with this tragedy of losing my niece Gigi and my brother. Magic Johnson tweeted he was in disbelief and had been crying all morning over the news. He said, Cookie and I are broken. Other sporting greats are also sharing their shock. New England Patriot Tom Brady tweeting, we miss you already, Kobe. And National Hockey League great Wayne Gretzky tweeting he had no words to describe our shock and sadness on the tragic passing of Kobe Bryant today. Kanye West, a basketball fan and close friend of Bryant, tweeted, we're praying for your family and appreciate the life you've lived and all the inspiration you gave. Lakers star LeBron James and his teammates were visibly upset as they arrived back in Los Angeles today following news of the tragedy. On Saturday night, James surpassed Bryant in basketball history, scoring 33,643 points. In one of his last tweets, Bryant saluted his achievement, tweeting, continuing to move the game forward. Much respect, my brother. Today, LeBron James could be seen on the tarmac hugging people as he slowly made his way to the team van. Kobe Bryant leaves behind his parents, Joe and Pamela, wife Vanessa, and 3 daughters. For Checkpoint, Bridget Burke.
A vigil is underway now in Newport Beach, where Kobe Bryant lived with his family. A short time ago, the city's mayor, Will O'Neill, told me the community had not only lost a legend, but a much-loved neighbour.
I was at a kid's birthday party. My children are 7 and 5, and I started receiving text messages, emails, and phone calls, and it's just been a devastating day.
What did you think? Did you think it was real when you first heard it?
Well, the first one out was TMZ, and so I was trying to figure out whether it was real, but then things started getting confirmed, and throughout the day, more and more names were coming, and we've, at the end of the day, found out that of the 9 people who died, 7 of them live in Newport Beach. We've lost mothers and fathers. We've lost daughters and sisters. It's awful.
That must be pretty devastating for your community.
It's been awful. We're holding a vigil in about 30 minutes, and I expect a lot of people from the community to be here. A lot of neighbors, a lot of friends, a lot of family.
So how are people showing their grief?
A lot of social media posts. It seems like everyone has a picture with Kobe Bryant. He was a genuinely good person, a nice person. He was someone, if you walked up to at Starbucks or in the grocery store, he'd take a smiling picture, and that's who he was. He was part of the community. He was a neighbor.
Yeah, what was it like having him in your town, a star of this magnitude?
Well, initially it's a little bit, you can get a little starstruck, but then you start seeing him everywhere because he had daughters. And so you would see him at basketball games, you'd see him at the park, you'd see him running around and all over our city. And so this really, I'm sure that internationally people feel that they've lost an icon, and they have. There's no question about that. We feel like we've lost a neighbor, and unfortunately we lost 6 more today as well. It's just hard. It's hard to process right now.
You said in your own tribute that he was a champion on and off the court. What do you mean?
He was generous to charities. And not just that. There have been great stories being told about him coming to the aid of people who got into car accidents. And so we're just going to miss him. I mean, he was a part of our community, and that's what I mean when I say he was a champion off it.
You're sounding pretty shell-shocked.
We are. There's no question. I mean, not just losing Kobe, losing his daughter, who's 13, losing 2 more girls who are friends of hers, losing parents. There are a lot of families that are devastated. I'm sure trying to come to grips with this, and we share their pain, and we'll be there for them.
So what are you planning tonight with the memorial service?
Well, tonight is going to be a vigil. It's really going to be a place where people can express their grief and together to come together and try to find positive in something that is just so awfully negative right now.
And that is Will O'Neill, who is the mayor of Newport Beach, where Kobe Bryant lived. It is almost 5:20 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Get in touch about anything you've heard on the program. We'd love to hear from you. You can text us on 2101, tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ, or you can email checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. Hundreds of air passengers from mainland China arrived in Auckland today, but not one person volunteered to be checked by medical staff at Auckland Airport. Much of China is on high alert for the spread of the potentially deadly coronavirus, which has killed 56 people so far. Up to 1,800 people a day arrive in Auckland and Christchurch from China on flights from Shanghai and Guangzhou. Both cities have dozens of confirmed cases. Passengers arriving in Auckland said they would try and stay away from public places for a week or two and wear masks as often as possible. But health officials say they have no powers to force people to get checked for the virus, prompting calls for stricter biosecurity measures to keep people safe. Chen Liu reports.
An Auckland woman arriving from Shanghai kept her mask on even while she spoke to RNZ. Her Air New Zealand flight was orderly and normal, although she noticed most Chinese people wore masks, including Chinese attendants, but not the others. She was expecting more screening at the Auckland airport, but passengers were only asked to seek medical help if feeling unwell and handed health advice pamphlets.
There isn't much at the borders. There aren't any checks. The risk is very high. It will not be easy to control the situation in this small country. There are so many people coming into the country and so many areas are affected in China. And it's hard to tell whether people have it or not.
A family touring New Zealand from Beijing say they've brought enough masks with them for their month-long trip.
We will wear masks while we're visiting different places. We should take responsibility for other people, even though we don't have the virus. But I think people would be worried. We'll keep the masks on for a while until people are assured that we don't have it.
Auckland Jackie Field was meeting a friend arriving from the UK and says while people are taking the outbreak seriously, stricter biosecurity measures would be reassuring.
Not sure how successful it is, but I guess it's a start. Temperature controls of people don't always pick up things, but at least it's a start.
Jackie Field says she's a bit worried.
I think, well, if they're picking up people at the border and testing them at the border, we've got more of a chance, but I'm not saying that's, I suspect, the only way you can ever do anything is close borders in China, and how you do that I don't know.
Another Auckland woman, Sun Hee Kim, was collecting her daughter from the airport, thinks there is a chance the virus could spread.
Hopefully, the New Zealand government, especially in the airport, is a more strictly control for the virus.
And at a pharmacy near Auckland Airport, a worker says they sold out of face masks last Thursday and have placed new orders.
We're just waiting, hopefully tomorrow or the day after they're going to be here. We are still trying to get other stores around Auckland to transfer to us because yesterday alone I've counted 102 people, phone calls and coming into the shop asking for face masks.
New Zealand nurses are at Auckland Airport and are available to passengers on the flights from China. But Auckland health officials say they have no power to compel people to be checked. Some virologists have told RNZ they are skeptical about the effectiveness of masks against airborne viruses. But there is some evidence to suggest the masks can help prevent hand-to-mouth transmissions by limiting the chance of inhaling large infectious particles. Mo te hotaka o te ahiahi nei ko Chen Liu aho.
Schools have been told to keep a close watch on foreign students arriving from regions affected by the deadly coronavirus. About half of the 20,000 international students expected in New Zealand schools this year will come from China, where the outbreak of the virus began. The virus has killed 56 people so far, and the Chinese government is restricting travel in several cities, including Wuhan, where the virus was first detected. Here's our education correspondent, John Gerritsen.
Schools are reopening this week and next, and many of their foreign students are now arriving in New Zealand.
Among them is Chi Wu, who touched down at Auckland Airport from southern China this morning. He's about to resume studies in Year 12, but says he's been told his secondary school wants students from China to stay away for a week.
The school said that we could lock ourselves in the house for a week and then come to school.
Chi Wu says he'll do as the school asks, though he doesn't think it's necessary for people like him who are coming from the south of China.
There wasn't even one people got infected in my city, so I don't feel necessary to, lock myself in the room. It's not quite good. I'm going to do it anyway because the school says, and, as a student, you just got to follow the rules.
Auckland schools enrol more foreign students than any other region, and the president of the city's Secondary Principals Association, Richard Dykes, says they're following the Health Ministry's advice on how to limit the possible spread of the coronavirus.
They believe there is low risk of a virus here, so they have advised us that no specific actions have been taken at this stage. So look, they are the experts, and the association's advice to principals is to follow exactly what the Ministry of Health does. If their advice changes in any way, we'll act on that. But at this stage, we are just carrying on as per normal and just staying in close touch with the Ministry of Health.
However, John van der Zwan from the Schools International Education Business Association says it's advised schools to take precautions.
Having families and agents monitor temperatures before they leave. If there's any indication of symptoms, then, delaying their flights to New Zealand. When students arrive, schools can do their own easy little testing on students to see if their temperatures are up, and if they are, then they can take action.
John van der Zwan says the virus has not affected enrolments, but schools are worried about the outbreak.
Schools are concerned, and I think anything like this, it's important for schools to be vigilant and to be worried about how it might turn out. But we're not seeing any kind of downturn in enrolments. We don't know of any people that have cancelled or delayed their travel plans to come to New Zealand as a result of this. So schools, I think, are very much in a wait-and-see mode, I think, like everybody is.
Universities are the biggest enrollers of Chinese students, but their academic year does not start for several weeks, and they're keeping a close watch on the situation. Mō te hōtaka o te ahi, ko John Gerritsen tēnei.
A New Zealand software technician trapped indefinitely in Wuhan by the coronavirus outbreak believes New Zealand should be doing more to get its people out of the city. Joanna, who doesn't want her full name used, went to visit her father for the Chinese New Year. She says she hasn't left the house for 5 days because she's worried about catching the virus, and a lot of information circulating is unreliable and pretty scary. I asked her what it's like in Wuhan, where large gatherings and travel in and out of the city are banned.
So right now, all traffic going out of Wuhan has been stopped. So I have been staying at home the whole time.
So you're stuck there, basically, Joanna?
Yes.
Are you worried at all, or what is the feeling like there?
It's quite scary here, because there are also all kinds of rumors online, and and there's a shortage of medical supplies. Like, if we go outside, we cannot buy masks anywhere. In supermarkets, there's also a shortage of food. Lots of shelves are empty. And all public transportations are stopped. And even motor vehicles are banned. No private vehicles or commercial vehicles are allowed on the road. So, just like from some videos I saw online, seems like the medical professionals here are highly stressed because they also have a shortage of medical supplies, and there are just too many patients. So, it's quite scary here.
Who are you staying with? Who's there with you?
Just my family and I.
So what kind of precautions are you taking then?
So right now, we are even staying in separate rooms, just trying to eliminate all cases. And we do have disinfectant liquid, so we would spray around the house every day. And we're taking vitamin C pills and drinking chicken soup just to boost our immune system. And we have been just staying indoors the whole time.
So you're being very careful about hygiene at the moment?
Yes.
What about when you need food or supplies? Is anyone going outside?
No, we have enough food so far because my family actually bought a lot of food when I told them I'm coming home. So that's why we have enough food for now. But I heard my friends and some other families living elsewhere are having difficulties buying food.
So how long have you been basically shut down in the house for? How long since you last went outside for a walk or a look around?
Since 23rd of January. That's when the travel ban started.
And so you've basically stayed inside since then?
Yes.
What's going to happen for you then? I mean, what are your plans to get out of there?
I don't have any plans. I don't know how long the travel ban will last, and I'm supposed to go back to work next week in New York. So I've told my company that I might not be able to go back to work in time. So, yeah, there's no plan right now.
So you have a New Zealand passport and are you a New Zealand citizen, but you work in New York in the US?
That's correct.
And is there any indication, because obviously the Australian government is perhaps looking at evacuating its citizens from Wuhan, has there been any talk about America evacuating, and where would that leave you?
Yeah, America is evacuating all their diplomats and citizens in Wuhan, not just in Wuhan, but everywhere in China, actually. But since I'm not an American citizen, so that excludes me from the evacuation plan.
Okay, so have you spoken to New Zealand officials in Wuhan?
So there are no consulate in Wuhan, but I have called the embassy in China, but they are also on a holiday until this Wednesday due to Chinese New Year. But they do have an emergency hotline that I called twice already, and they just told me to register on Safe Travel, and I will be notified by Safe Travel if there are any plans.
Are you getting enough information from the New Zealand government?
I don't think so.
And how do you feel about that?
I feel a little disappointed since many other countries are taking actions already, but it seems like the New Zealand government is falling behind.
Do you have travel insurance, Joanna?
I believe so.
So have you looked into whether you can get help that way?
Not yet.
Okay. So at the moment, is it your plan just to sit and wait this out as long as you can?
Yes, it is.
How worried are you?
Very worried. And it's not just me, a New Zealand citizen out here, but I heard there are multiple New Zealand citizens here.
Are you in touch with any of them?
I have a cousin here that I do talk to, but I don't know the information on other people yet.
So, Joanna, are you near or know anyone who has contracted this virus?
No, I don't.
How will you feel about leaving your family behind when you are able to go?
Yeah, that also tortures me a bit inside because my family is living here alone. So, yeah, I'm quite, and they're also older, who are also would be easier to contract the virus and have more serious complications. So, yeah, I'm quite worried.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade has this afternoon confirmed there are 21 New Zealanders registered as being in Wuhan, with MFAT receiving a small number of requests for consular assistance. It says it's aware that some countries are providing their citizens with assistance to depart Wuhan and is working with its offices in China and consular partner countries about how to assist New Zealanders in Wuhan. Coming up on Checkpoint on RNZ National, comments by Shane Jones have been described as sexist and an attack on the leadership of Māori women. Unlike the Black Caps, the Silver Ferns kicked 2020 off on a high, winning netball's inaugural Nations Cup in London. And it's not just koalas, kangaroos and wallabies under threat following Australia's devastating bushfires. We meet a woman turning her home into a bat clinic. Let us know your thoughts on anything you've heard on the program tonight, specifically about the coronavirus, and also your thoughts on the death of the former NBA player Kobe Bryant. Let's go now to the headlines with Susanna.
China's National Health Commission says the ability of the coronavirus to spread still appears to be strengthening. The death toll from the country's outbreak has jumped to 80. So far, it has infected more than 2,750 people, most of them in China. The Chinese health minister says the infections are at a crucial stage of containment. A New Zealander who works in New York is pleading with the government to do more to get New Zealanders out of Wuhan, where the outbreak started. She went there a week ago to visit her father for the Chinese New Year and has not left the house for 5 days for fear of catching the virus. New Zealand health officials are monitoring 3 Chinese tourists in Rotorua who may have been exposed to the virus. The group arrived in Rotorua from Australia on Saturday after being on the same flight to Sydney as an infected person. A group of Māori women are seeking an apology from Shane Jones for calling the Ihu Mātau protest leader Pānia Newton a young putiputi or flower and questioning her mana. Almost 100 wāhine Māori have said in a statement the Cabinet Minister's remarks made during his visit to Ratana last week are sexist and offensive. One of the signatories, Huhana Hiki, says Mr Jones should apologise. Shane Jones has declined to comment. Waiheke residents are being warned the worst is yet to come as water shortages continue to plague the island. One resident says the situation is getting desperate as almost all properties depend on tank and rainwater. He says long-term residents are accustomed to conserving water in summer, but newer residents still seem to be using more water than necessary. The Foreign Affairs Minister Winston Peters has announced New Zealand will be home to a Pacific-led hub to improve public services across the region. The newly established Pacific Public Service Whale will be based in the State Services Commission in Wellington. It will offer technical assistance, advisory support, training and knowledge exchange for public servants from the Pacific. Those are the latest news headlines from RNZ National. Our next news and weather is at 6.
Thanks, Susanna. And if you're just joining us, this is Checkpoint and I'm Lisa Owen. It's time now to get to business with Nona Peltier. Hi, Nona. Sinalei Milk, now this is a company we hear about quite a bit, has raised its forecast farm gate milk price. That's a mouthful. That's the payout to farmers. What is the latest?
Yeah, so that farm gate milk price is what farmers can expect to get for their milk, and the price that they're offering is up from the earlier offer. So $7.25 is their new forecast versus $7. And that's because they think that the high milk prices that the global trade is getting are going to hold with supply and demand in pretty equal balance internationally. And that's good news for the farmers. The last time, it's been a long time since we've had prices at this level. The record-breaking price was in that 2013-2014 year. It was about $8 a kilo of milk solids. So that's a really good price for farmers. And certainly it will be helping those that have been struggling for a few years. It's still not great news because farmers are facing all sorts of, debt from past difficult years. And
potential drought.
And there's the potential drought. So, it's one of those things that's definitely cyclical. It depends on, of course, the commodity prices. And at this time, it's doing pretty well for the farmers. So hopefully this will work out for them for this season.
Business confidence has improved, it seems, in the central provinces. What's driving that?
Yeah, so, we do a lot of surveys on business confidence. This one is done by the Wellington Chamber of Commerce and what is called Business Central, and that's an area from, say, Gisborne to New Plymouth down through to Nelson. So that sort of area. And it's a survey of about 400 businesses there. And what they found was a positive outlook on business confidence for the first time really in the year. So the first 3 quarters of 2019, it was a negative number. And in the last quarter, the December quarter, it ticked up to 3.8%, which is still positive. And that's more positive than it had been for the whole year. And so it's hard to know exactly. But apparently confidence usually lifts in December, I guess because people feel more optimistic with Christmas coming in, maybe just the holiday and the warmer weather, but also because they got a number of new orders, and so things are looking pretty good. But where it's down is the labor front. The real shortages are holding back economic growth in the regions. We're seeing that in the major centres too. And it's not just skilled workers they're having a hard time getting, it's unskilled workers too. So it's quite a difficult situation. And that is definitely holding back what they call New Zealand Inc., which is our economy. Yeah.
So, what news do you bring of the markets
Interesting today. So we had... all the markets, well, Australia's closed. A number of Asian markets are closed, including Hong Kong and China for the Chinese lunar holiday as well. So we don't have a lot of activity in the market yet. We have drifted lower today. Our market was down about 0.5%. And, well, actually 0.6%. That's 71 points to 11,807. That's our stock market. Now, that follows a pretty big drop on Friday when word spread of the coronavirus. And also our currency has taken a bit of a dip down today. Now, it's on pretty thin volume, I just want to say, because Auckland Anniversary Day, Australia being closed, as well as a lot of Asian traders. So the Kiwi is trading at 65.8 US cents, 96.6 Australian, and 50.3 pence. Now, we're also down a bit against the euro, but we are slightly up against the Chinese yuan, and the Japanese yen has really rocketed ahead because it's seen as a safe currency when these kinds of international events take place. Japan is where people park their money.
Thanks, Nona. Nona Pelsier with all our numbers and our business update. Sexist, misogynistic and an attack on the leadership of Māori women. That is how recent remarks by Shane Jones have been described after he called Ihumātao protest leader Pania Newton a young puti, meaning a young flower, during his visit to Ratana last week. A group of almost 100 wahine Māori have released a public statement calling him a bully, and some want an apology. Te Aniwa Huri Hanganui has more.
I am in no way swayed by this constant social media grandstanding by our young puti Pania. Pania must not pretend that she is something in the Māori world that she's not. You derive your mana in te ao Māori, not from pleasing Pākehās.
Shane Jones last week not holding back on his opinion of Pania Newton. The Cabinet Minister has always been a vocal opponent of the land occupation at Ihumātao in South Auckland, but Pania Newton says his latest remarks were personal.
Yeah, I was really taken back, actually. Our entire campaign, he has openly criticised us, but he has never taken direct attacks towards us. It's not okay for men to marginalise women, especially Māori men, to our wahine Māori.
Pania Newton has occupied Ihumātao for the last 3 years, her relentless campaigning to have the disputed land returned, garnering support from all corners of te ao Māori, including from the Kingitanga. Following Shane Jones's recent remarks, she's now got the backing of almost 100 Māori academics, activists, artists and political commentators who have released an open statement calling him a bully. Criminal justice reform advocate Awatea Mita is particularly offended.
As a wahine Māori leader, I felt a deep sense of hurt by what Shane Jones has said. Shane Jones is another man who has come in and tried to denigrate Māori women and Māori woman leadership. When you look at the history of Shane Jones' statement towards Māori women, this is where I feel he just is highlighting his sexism and his misogyny.
Shane Jones has declined to be interviewed, but Dr. Huhana Hiki, who has signed the public statement, says he's got some answering to do.
Calling someone a puti is rather a condescending statement to dismiss our rangatahi who are doing the hard yards, often in advocacy and advocating. She hasn't been pleasing Pākehā, and she has already derived her mana in te ao Māori. She lives out that way, she breathes it. I've watched her, seen her over the years grow in her knowledge around Indigenous issues, and that woman has mana.
She says he should apologise to Pania Newton, kanohi ki te kanohi, face to face.
I think if he kanohi ki te kanohi to her, apology, sit down and listen to her. He'll know what she's saying. Yes, he's a politician, but that's not appropriate. And in our world, we like to kanohi people, sit down and talk to them if we have a raru with them. And he didn't do any of that. He just made a media statement that was quite dismissive, condescending and a little bit insulting.
Pania Newton says she would be happy to meet and have a kōrero with Shane Jones. A resolution to the Ihumātao land dispute is expected to be announced before Waitangi Day. Mo te hōtaka o te ahiahi, ko te aniwa, hurihanga nui, aho.
It's 6:45. I'm Lisa Owen and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. I'm interested in your views on that. Was that derogatory, sexist and bullying language from Shane Jones or something else? Let us know what you make of it. You can text us on 2101, tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ or email checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. The Silver Ferns have started the year on a high, winning netball's inaugural Nations Cup in London this morning after beating Jamaica 67-56. The side is quite different to the one that captured the World Cup last year, with legends Casey Kopua and Maria Falau retiring. Veterans Laura Langman and Katrina Rore were also on sabbaticals. Coach Dame Nolene Taurua gave everyone court time across the series and told sports reporter Bridget Tunnicliffe that building depth has been one of the objectives.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a fine line, one, to be able to obviously go for the win, and second thing, to make those changes where it's not detrimental to performance. I'm really happy, actually, out of the whole tournament, that those changes, that they made huge impact when they did take the court, and really pleasing to see, for me personally, to know what the strengths are of individuals when they're under pressure.
And Maya Wilson, another fine shooting display. You can literally see the speed there and her footwork has improved. Is it nice seeing her play with such confidence?
Yeah, very much so. I think what she's currently able to do out on court, it's just reward for the work that she has done off court. She's made great gains in regards to the physical side and has improved so much in regards to her fitness. And she's always been a smart player and has great skills. And now that she is fitter, she's able to do it at a higher intensity. So really pleased. Her shooting percentages were very high, and we're really pleased about her progress.
Is it hard to know where you are at when England, for example, had quite an understrength side there and Australia weren't even there?
It's always difficult when you do have players out of teams or teams not involved, for example, Australia. But I think, for us it was bigger than that. It was really, yes, we were looking to win the Nations Cup, but also get valuable time to get people out on court. So it is what it is, and you play your opposition and you try and make the most of it.
Diamonds coach Lisa Alexander was there, obviously studying the teams, gathering some intel. For your part, is it a case of trying to almost anticipate what Australia might be doing?
No, I think there's a long way to go. There's probably another 6 months where the players do go back into their club side, and now it's about them working on their game. And then, once that happens and we know what that stage is, then we'll look to the next stage. So there's a long way to go without worrying about Australia and what they're doing or what they think that we're doing.
With Connie Francis back as coach of Jamaica and their performance today, can you see them becoming a lot more dangerous over the next few years?
Oh, definitely. That was probably after watching them on the first game against South Africa, that's what I actually noticed. The Jamaican way, the Jamaican flair, the ability to play the aerial game. And, with it being the first outing for Connie, I'm sure that she'll be able to build on the series and knowing that it's really valuable for them looking into 2023. So I think they're just going to be unstoppable once they get their thing going, and that's quite scary.
And Amelia Iran Ignaccio is captain. How do you think she went?
Oh, I thought she was fantastic. It's her first outing. The stuff that she's doing off court is amazing, and she's got the full support of not only the management but also the players. I thought when it got a bit sticky there and it was going toe for toe that she definitely stood up, took a lot of load in that shooting circle and put the ball through the hoop. So overall, yeah, she gets a big pass mark.
Silver Ferns coach Dame Noling Taurua. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is preparing for a meeting with Donald Trump in Washington, just ahead of the president's Middle East peace plan being released this week. Mr. Trump has previously described it as the deal of the century. The ABC's Eric Torchek reports.
Facing an imminent corruption indictment and his third election in a year, Benjamin Netanyahu is still talking like the kind of winner President Trump admires. During the past 3 years, I held countless talks with President Trump, a huge friend of Israel, and with his team about these crucial interests, about our security, about our justice, he says. Tomorrow I'm going to meet President Trump, and on Tuesday, together with him, we will make history. Mr. Netanyahu's political rival, Benny Gantz, the former general who could soon be Prime Minister, has also been invited to the White House.
The peace plan devised by President Trump will go down in history as a meaningful landmark, mapping the way for the different players in the Middle East to finally move forward towards an historic and regional agreement.
Benjamin Netanyahu is promising to annex the Jordan Valley, a large part of the Palestinian territories occupied by Israel, as well as the Jewish settlements within the West Bank. The United Nations says such moves would entrench Israel's ongoing breaches of international law and would destroy any hope of a two-state solution to the conflict. But many observers expect Benjamin Netanyahu's promises will be approved of in the Trump peace plan.
It's an Israeli plan. It's Netanyahu's plan packaged as American plan.
Mustafa Barghouti is a Palestinian activist and politician.
Unfortunately, it's a plan that will kill the two-state solution and substitutes it with a system of domination from Israel over Palestinians, a system of racial discrimination and apartheid.
The White House released what it called the economic component of the plan last year to a tepid response. The UN recognised Palestinian leadership, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, has been boycotting the Trump process since the president recognised Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Former Israeli peace negotiator Menachem Klein says the exclusion of the Palestinians means the plan cannot work.
It is a deal not with a Palestinian peace partner, it is a deal between two partners, Trump and Netanyahu, in order to help to succeed in the elections. Especially Netanyahu in Israel, he is in trouble.
Palestinian leaders are hoping the deal will be condemned by the wider international community and will be forgotten even more quickly than previous peace proposals. But there are no strong voices pushing for an alternative, and no one able to stop Israel's annexation from going ahead either.
Eric Torchek reporting. In India, women are still underrepresented in the labour market. Traditional structures, sexual discrimination and worries about their security make it difficult for women to find jobs. But now there's an initiative that's aiming to change that. This report from Deutsche Welle.
It doesn't pay much. But this is how Ekta helps to support her 4 siblings and her mother. Like many 21-year-olds, she has bigger plans. Ekta has already finished a course in sewing technology, and she's been attending training sessions with this youth and employability service to help her get a better paid job.
I am determined to work. I've had a very difficult life. I've had problems with my family and other problems too. But I've never accepted defeat. I want to help my siblings build their careers. If I get a good job, my mother doesn't need to work as a maid in other people's homes anymore. I know I will succeed.
Many more women across India are pursuing further education. But less than a quarter of those eligible to work have jobs or are even seeking employment. Concerns about safety in transport are some of the reasons why families, as well as employers, don't want women working. Hiring men is easier. For one thing, bosses don't have to worry about them getting home before it's dark. That's been a problem Pinky Kumari has faced. She travels nearly 2 hours from her village just to get to work. And sometimes she has to leave early in order to get home while it's still light. But she's already broken a taboo by becoming the first woman in her family to have an office job even if she had to fight to get it.
I've struggled a lot. I wasn't allowed to work. I had problems with the family. But I feel very good about my first job. I'm learning a lot. I'm enjoying it.
Many women like Pinky also struggle to work.
When a woman tries to work, the family stops her. They don't let her progress. They think, she'll go out, she could do anything. Don't let her out, she'll dishonor us. They don't trust her.
So many barriers for women, including Ekta. But still, they persevere.
And British meteorologists say the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the leading cause of global warming, appears on track for one of the biggest annual increases since recordings began in the 1950s. It's partly fuelled by the devastating wildfires raging across Australia. Matthew Laratonda reports.
The concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the leading cause of global warming, appears on track for one of its biggest annual increases since recordings began in the 1950s. Partly, according to researchers, due to the massive and devastating wildfires that have swept Australia for months. The news comes from meteorologists with the British government. It says that while man-made emissions, such as from cars and factories, have always represented the bulk of the concentration, that it's also influenced by weather patterns. About a fifth of that influence from weather this year will reportedly come from the fires. Scientists have long warned that climate change increases the likelihood of wildfires, which in turn worsen climate change itself in a snowball effect. This current season of fire in Australia has burned at least 38,000 square miles of territory. That's about the size of the state of Kentucky.
Matthew Laratonda reporting there. And staying in Australia, Australia's flying fox population is under threat by habitat loss caused by the country's devastating bushfires. But one woman is trying to help by converting her home into a bat clinic. Beth Timmins reports.
Janine Davies has nearly 50 flying foxes living with her. From feeding bottles to cleaning, the part-time rescuer rarely gets a good night's sleep lately. Australia's raging forest fires have destroyed the habitat of many native species, including these grey-headed flying foxes. They're considered vulnerable because their population is already dwindling due to threats from land-clearing activities, which the fires have exacerbated. Davies, the coordinator of Shoalhaven Bats Clinic and Sanctuary, has rescued 5 times more bats in the past 3 months compared to the same period last year.
It's basically catastrophic. I mean, the fires have just literally gone down the whole east coast of Australia and they're just continuing to burn. I went into work today, which is the first time in a month, and I was just shocked at how close to where I worked and all the areas where I'd collect blossom for these little guys, everything's gone. There's nothing but burnt sticks.
Usually one fruit bat will spend up to 4.5 months in rehabilitation at the bat clinic before release back into the wild. But due to the lack of food stocks caused by the fires, Davies is taking more time to research the best release location, fearing she could send them back into another crisis. The Australian government said it will provide up to 50 million Australian dollars, that's 34 million US dollars, in a wildlife recovery programme focusing on the survival of the country's native animals.
People have got to let go of being ignorant and appreciate that they do a vital role. We don't go out and pollinate the forests. These guys do, and we need to do all that we can to make them survive.
But if the population of the flying foxes declines further, it could ultimately impact other endangered species living in the forest, because they are a key pollinator for many trees, including the eucalyptus, which is the sole food source of koala bears.
And that's Beth Timmins with that report. Let's get to some of your feedback now before 6. On the death of Kobe Bryant, the former NBA MVP, Olympian and Oscar winner, you're giving us a bit of a serve for covering the accident in which he was killed. Jeff from Tauranga says, why is the death of some Yank basketball player getting so much attention here? 2 question marks. Who gives a damn, says Jeff. Maureen tends to agree. She says there's so much happening in New Zealand. Climate, farming, health, waiting lists, education, new school year. So much that your reporters and journalists could be focusing on. But a US sports person come on, all capital letters and 3 exclamation marks. Thanks for your feedback, Maureen. On the subject of Shane Jones and his comments about Pania Newton from Seoul, Ruben says, if Pania is a flower, Shame, yes, and I'm reading his writing correctly, Shame Jones is a gorse bush. Tell Shame you don't appear taller by trying to cut the legs off Pania, who stands tall, says Ruben. Someone else says Shane Jones is name-calling. This is immature and not worthy behaviour of one of our supposed leaders of our country. He was not elected to behave in this way. Someone who signs off R says, what a load of nonsense. What's so bad about calling someone a flower? But someone else says, yes, it is sexist, bullying and derogatory. And a number of you getting in touch about coronavirus, saying that the New Zealand government should not be responsible for getting home New Zealand citizens who are stuck there. They can pay their own way, most of you think.
RNZ News at 6, ngā mihi nui ko Susana Lei a tawa tēnei. The Chinese authorities have sharply revised upwards the number of deaths from the coronavirus. The toll now stands at 80. 2,700 people are infected, 300 of whom are critically ill. Chris Barkley of the New York Times is in Wuhan, the epicentre of the outbreak.
The government says that they're coming in and more supplies are arriving. That may well be true, but there is a desperate need for those supplies here, in particular among medical staff who need the topmost protection so they can deal with patients who may have the coronavirus. It does sound like the government is digging in for a longer fight, and it does sound like they're expecting that at least in the short term there's going to be a continued rise in the number of cases.
Chris Buckley. A New Zealander trapped in Wuhan is pleading with the government to do more to get New Zealanders out. Joanna, who works in New York, travelled to the city a week ago to visit her father for the Chinese New Year. She's now stuck there and hasn't left the house for 5 days for fear of catching the virus. She says she's contacted New Zealand officials twice but was told to just register online and await further details. Joanna says it's disappointing New Zealand is lagging behind other countries like the United States in evacuating its citizens. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs says it has received a small number of requests for consular assistance from New Zealanders in Wuhan City and Hubei Province, and the embassy in Beijing is providing assistance in such cases. But it says for privacy reasons it does not comment on individual cases. 21 New Zealanders are currently registered on safe travel as being in Wuhan. The ministry says it's aware some countries are helping their citizens leave the city, and it's working closely with Chinese officials and diplomats about how best to help New Zealanders there. New Zealand's stock market has ended down today amid growing concerns over the scope of the virus, which could severely disrupt the Chinese economy. The NZX Top 50 index fell by more than 0.5%, although volumes are thin because of Auckland Anniversary Day. Tourism-related stocks such as Auckland Airport, Air New Zealand, Tourism Holdings and Sky City all fell. The death of a critically injured man in Lower Hutt is now being treated as homicide. The body of the 56-year-old from Bay of Plenty was discovered at the intersection of Futter Grove and Hughes Crescent yesterday. Jonathan Mitchell reports.
The man died a short time after being discovered about 5:30 yesterday morning. Blood was still visible today on the footpath where the body was found. A neighbour who didn't want to be interviewed says it was right out in front of her property. A large cordon encompassing 3 houses remains in place. The police, who had initially treated the death as unexplained, are expected to remain in the area over the coming days. Called Jonathan Mitchell, tēnei.
The police are searching for a swimmer who has failed to resurface at a swimming hole north of Auckland. They say they were called to Karekare about 3:30 and remain at the scene. Earlier this afternoon, the body of a diver was found off the coast of Northland. The police say they received a report of a diver failing to surface at Taiharuru, east of Whangarei, about 12:30, and a body was found at 1:20. And a body discovered in the Whanganui River today is believed to be that of a 24-year-old Israeli man who failed to surface at the Mosquito Point swimming hole near Upokongaro yesterday. It's 3.5 minutes past 6. South Africa have trounced the New Zealand women's side by 8 wickets to win the second one-day cricket international at Eden Park in Auckland. The win gives the tourists an unassailable 2-0 lead in the 3-match series. Batting first, the White Ferns mustered just 115, Susie Bates top scoring with 38. South Africa had little trouble reaching the target in 24 overs. Game 3 is in Hamilton on Thursday. Silver Ferns coach Nolene Dodua says the Nations Cup netball tournament in London has been a success for the side, not only because they won, but also because they kept developing several young players. New Zealand beat Jamaica 67-56 to win the title this morning. 22-year-old shooter Maya Wilson had a strong tournament, and Dodua says that reflects the hard work she has done off the court.
She's made great gains in regards to the physical side and has improved so much in regards to her fitness, and she's always been a smart player and has great skills, and now that she is fitter, she's able to do it at a higher intensity.
Silver Ferns coach Dame Nolene Dodua. New Zealand driver Scott Dixon and his Cadillac team have won the Daytona 24 race in Florida. It's the third win at Daytona for Dixon, a 5-time IndyCar champion. Fellow New Zealand Earl Bamber is in a Porsche, who was second in his class and 14th overall, while Supercars driver Shane Van Gisbergen was 31st overall. That's the news.
Tonight on Night, Sebastian Zhu lives in New Zealand, but a lot of family back in Wuhan. What's he making of the coronavirus outbreak in his hometown? And what's his hometown like anyway? Vinnie Wiley joins us to talk sport from a Pacific Island point of view, while the BBC's been looking at efforts to train people in how to disagree better. On Nights of me, Brian Crump, after the news at 7 on RNZ National.
The short forecast from Met Service to midnight tomorrow, starting with Northland, Auckland, Waikato, Coromandel, Bay of Plenty, Taupo and Taihape. Mainly fine, isolated showers from tomorrow afternoon, possibly thundery about Taupo and Taihape. For Waitomo through to Whanganui, including Taumaranui, fine spells, cloudy with patchy drizzle morning and night, isolated showers inland from tomorrow afternoon. Gisborne and Hawke's Bay mainly fine, isolated afternoon and evening showers inland, possibly thundery tomorrow. Manawatu to Wellington, mostly cloudy, patchy drizzle morning and night. Wairarapa, fine, however cloudy areas and patchy drizzle for the Taradua district. To Nelson and Marlborough, fine apart from isolated showers about the ranges tomorrow. Bulla, Westland and Fiordland, mostly cloudy, occasional rain or drizzle. Canterbury and Otago, mostly cloudy about the coast, fine spells inland, isolated showers tomorrow. Southland, cloudy, isolated showers, however rain for Stewart Island, clearing tomorrow morning. And Chatham Islands, cloudy, patchy drizzle at night. RNZ National, it's coming up to 7 minutes past 6.
Thanks, Susanna. You're listening to Checkpoint and I'm Lisa Owen. The coronavirus emergency is accelerating in China, with 80 people confirmed dead and more than 2,700 people infected with the virus. China's announced an extension to its holiday period in the hope that it will help stop the spread. More than 57 million people are in lockdown in a number of different cities. Health officials have established people can pass on the infection before they show any symptoms, making it much harder to contain. The BBC's Rupert Wingfield-Hayes reports.
On the outskirts of Wuhan, the race is on to beat the coronavirus. Every bulldozer and excavator that can be found is being used to clear land for a 1,000-bed isolation hospital. It must be finished in 2 weeks. The trouble is, it's needed now. Chinese officials today admitted the virus is spreading faster and that it can be passed on by people who show no symptoms. There are now growing calls for the British government to evacuate its own citizens from the city, as the US is already doing.
And the UK government is aware now that all the transport links are closed. So I find it a little bit surprising that we're being told to leave if we can when there is no possible route.
Chinese state television is showing scenes like this of people treated in modern intensive care units. But videos like this one loaded to the internet claim to show a different picture of hospitals overwhelmed, and staff unable to cope. In Beijing, reporters mobbed the head of China's CDC as he tried to calm the growing sense of panic. This virus is not as strong or as dangerous as the SARS virus was, he says. But it's a new virus, so we need time to develop treatment.
While the Chinese government is now taking decisive measures to try and contain the spread of this virus, many experts think it is already too late. One study suggests that in Wuhan city alone, by the end of next week, there will be nearly 200,000 infections. And that's why senior doctors here in Hong Kong are calling on the government to close the border with mainland China.
Back in mainland China, many places are not waiting. These pictures posted on the internet appear to show villages and towns putting up their own improvised borders, shutting themselves off, making sure travellers from Wuhan cannot come in. Wuhan itself is now a ghost town. Today, this was the centre of a city of 11 million people during the biggest holiday of the year.
Rupert Wingfield-Hayes reporting. It's not a question of if the deadly coronavirus will make it to New Zealand, but rather when, according to New Zealand health officials. Tomorrow, Cabinet will consider whether to make coronavirus a notifiable disease, meaning public health officials would have the power, if needed, to isolate patients who contract it. The Director of Public Health, Dr. Carolyn McElnay, told me health authorities are preparing for the arrival of the illness in New Zealand, as there is a high likelihood of cases here.
We've been looking at what's been happening across China and other countries, and of course with the cases that emerged in Australia over the weekend. And we've been looking at our risk assessment, and I think it is fair to say that given all of that, there is a high likelihood that we will see a case here in New Zealand, and that's what we're planning for, and that's what we're getting ready for.
Can you put it in perspective for us in terms of how contagious this is, like, for example, in comparison to measles, so people can get a bit more of an understanding?
Okay, the WHO's given us some information based on all the cases and the information that's been made available about contacts across the world. And the data suggests that for every case of this novel coronavirus, there's a likelihood of between 1.5 to 2.5 people, so approximately 2 people who might get infected as a result of one case. So one case can become 2. Now that's actually not very infectious for something like measles. The numbers who are affected after a case can vary from about 14 up to 18. Some places actually quote 18 as the number who can get infected. So that's very different. It makes it much more like some other diseases that we currently have. It's a bit less than seasonal influenza. And
what about fatality
on that basis,
rates?
And from what we've seen. So fatality rate is another measure. And again, from China, it looks like of the cases that have been reported, the fatality rate is being quoted as around 3%, 3 to 4%. If you look at SARS, that was a 10% mortality rate. There are some other diseases that have much higher mortality rate. MERS, which is the similar coronavirus out of the Middle East, that's got a much higher mortality rate, and of course Ebola has a very high mortality rate. So being able to put all of those in context means that this virus is not doesn't have a particularly high mortality rate, and it's not particularly transmissible. But of course what we're seeing is a number of cases popping up across the country, and that comes back to our assessment of risk, is that we would expect to see a case, but we don't expect that case to cause a sustained outbreak in New Zealand. We might potentially see another case as a result of the first case in New Zealand, but we're really not looking at a scenario of a sustained community outbreak here in New Zealand.
So it will, I assume, then come down to how you treat anyone who is infected, and also your ability to isolate them. Do we have the facilities, and where are they? Are they just at the main centres, and how many patients could you conceivably manage?
Well, our existing hospital system is well set up to manage infectious diseases and patients who have infectious diseases, so this would not be anything particularly out of the ordinary. I think the key here is that we detect a case very quickly, that we limit any exposure, particularly to healthcare workers, because that's what we're seeing overseas, is that the people who are most infectious are those who have very severe respiratory infection, and those are the ones that end up in hospital. And so we are working very closely with our DHBs to ensure that we've got really good infection prevention control procedures, which need to be in place at all times. That's where this is really nothing different from what can come across their doors at any time. And our focus to date has really been about getting that information and guidance out to both the hospital sector and the primary care sector and the public health sector, because it's all those sectors working together that will mean we pick this up quickly, we manage it well, and we manage the contacts well, and that if the case is in hospital, that they too are managed.
Are you still having to send tests offshore to get confirmation of whether it's coronavirus or not?
Yes, we are still sending any tests to Melbourne, but we do hope to have the New Zealand testing up and running by the end of this week.
Doesn't that pose a problem for you then, in terms of confirming in quick order whether you've got something to be worried about or not?
We've actually expect to have a very quick turnaround time. The management of the patient doesn't really change in terms of the test. The test is a confirmation, but we would expect to get a very quick turnaround from Melbourne. It's really, the delay might be in how long it takes to get the sample to Melbourne, but the Melbourne labs are certainly turning these results around really quickly.
Within how many hours or days?
About 24 to 36 hours. Looking at the information that's coming out of Australia, they're getting a very quick turnaround in that order of between 24 and 36 hours for the test results.
So you had a group of people in Rotorua who were on a plane, it seems, with a person who is now confirmed to have coronavirus. How many people are we talking about here, and what has been done to follow up and screen them?
So my understanding is that there was a tour company who were on the same flight, and that tour has been travelling to New Zealand, and they came to the attention of one of our medical officers of health in Rotorua, and so that group of 19 were interviewed and assessed. They had a medical assessment to check that they were all well. A small number of them had further assessment from a clinician at Rotorua Hospital. They were all deemed to be well, and they are as discharged. They've been asked to keep being aware of signs and symptoms, and the Public Health Service is keeping in touch with that group to check up on any symptoms that might develop.
And how long had they been moving around the country before you identified them and screened them?
Oh, I don't have the specific details on that, but my understanding is that they had just arrived into New Zealand. They had come in from Australia.
And that's Dr. Caroline McElnay, who's the Director of Public Health. It is almost 18 minutes past 6 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. He's been described as a sporting icon who transcended the game he excelled at. Kobe Bryant has died aged 41, alongside his daughter and 7 others in a helicopter which crashed in California. His list of accolades is lengthy and tributes have come in from all around the globe. But the former LA Lakers player also had his challenges. CNN's Paulo Sandoval looks back on Bryant's life.
He was born Kobe Bean Bryant, but to the world, the 41-year-old was a global basketball phenomenon. The son of a pro basketball player, the Philly native finished high school and was quickly drafted by the NBA.
Greatness lies ahead for this young man.
At the time, Bryant was the youngest player in the league's history at just over 17 years old.
I think a lot of people, even when I came out of high school, I think people were kind of giving me the cold shoulder to begin with, because I think, unfortunately, some people wanted me to fail. because I defied the odds.
The MVP spent his entire pro career with the LA Lakers, winning 5 NBA championships with the team. During his 20 seasons, Bryant became one of the league's top scoring players, even surpassed Michael Jordan, becoming 4th on the NBA's all-time scoring list. On 2 occasions, he helped secure Team USA Olympic gold on the world stage. Bryant dealt with controversy, too. In 2003, he was charged with sexual assault, accused of raping a 19-year-old hotel employee. The charge was later dropped, and the case was settled in civil court. Bryant also overcame various sport-related injuries, always determined to heal and return to the court. Then in the fall of 2015, he announced his plan to retire from the NBA and played his final game in 2016. The following year, his jersey numbers 8 and 24 were retired. Since then, he has made his mark on Hollywood, winning an Academy Award for his animated film Dear Basketball. But his greatest accomplishment may have been off the hardwood. He was a husband and proud father of 4 children.
We all have moments like this in life where it just seems like that day is never going to end. You know, it just seems like the moment that you're in just feels like the darkest moment to you. You know, and at that point, you really kind of have to step outside of yourself and put it in perspective and understand that, you know, I've had many, many blessings, a lot of things to be thankful for.
At 6'6", Bryant was more than just a literal giant. LA Mayor Eric Garcetti wrote, Bryant inspired, amazed, and thrilled people everywhere with his incomparable skill on the court, and awed us with his intellect and humility as a father, husband, creative genius, and ambassador for the game he loved.
Polo Sandoval reporting. CNN's Connor Powell has spent the day near the crash site in Calabasas. I asked him how the community's reacting.
There's a lot of shock here in Los Angeles and really across all of Southern California. I mean, Kobe Bryant is an icon in this city, not just a basketball legend, but, you know, he was here for 20 years. He only played for the Lakers. He was drafted right out of high school. He was very much a part of the community here. You know, he had sort of started to build his post-professional basketball life here. The facility that they were traveling to with his daughter on the helicopter was the Mamba Sports Facility, which is a large sports facility right outside of Los Angeles. It's named for him. I mean, this is his facility. He had a lot of roots here. You know, he wrote a children's book, and just a few months ago, he was in Orange County, south of Los Angeles, promoting his book, his children's book. So this is a guy who is very much tied to the community here. I've seen other celebrities die in the United States. I don't think I've ever seen a community this sort of shocked over his death in the way that the people in Los Angeles are over Kobe Bryant's death.
What do you know about the crash itself?
A lot of questions, really. A lot more than we have answers. I'm standing at the crash site where we can see where it hit on the hill. This is an area of sort of rolling hills just north of Los Angeles. There was heavy fog this morning, but not so heavy fog that you would expect an experienced helicopter pilot like the one that Kobe Bryant was riding in. Kobe Bryant used the helicopter a lot to get around Southern California because the traffic's so bad here. That's how he commuted all around the region. And there was fog here this morning, but this isn't an area that is particularly difficult to fly with fog because there aren't big mountains here. You know, there aren't strong wind gusts. I mean, this is an area that is pretty calm weather most of the time. It's why Hollywood, it's why it's such a beautiful place to live. So the fog that was here really shouldn't have been a problem, but it's not clear if there's a mechanical problem or if there was weather that caused this. So that's what the Federal Aviation Administration and the National Transportation Safety Board are here trying to investigate. But it's dark here now, so a lot of the investigation will take place tomorrow once the sun is up. Today was very much about, I think, trying to recover any bodies that may have been, survived, but and try to get them to the families and to the coroner's office. But tomorrow, I think the investigation will really start in earnest. But right now, there's just not a whole lot of answers as to how this helicopter went from flying around the region as it does daily to crashing in the side of a small hill here.
Is there much debris there that they can, look for clues?
Yeah, I mean, you can see on the side of the hill there is a lot of debris. One of the things that's interesting is the helicopter is really smashed to pieces. You don't see sort of the tail fin or a rudder or the body. You don't see like a big chunk of it up there. All you really do see is small scattered pieces. You know, I've seen the video, as you may have seen as well, and there really aren't big chunks. I mean, it really does seem to have hit with a lot of velocity into the side of that hill. And this is a crash that appeared to have been a very violent crash into the side of the mountain because there's just not a lot of debris, big chunks of debris. It's all just very scattered in small pieces.
What do we know about the others who are on board? We're told that there's a total of 9 people.
So we know that the pilot was also obviously on board. We don't know his name. Kobe Bryant's 13-year-old daughter, Gigi, was on board. It was her basketball game that they were flying to. We also know that one of her teammates, Alyssa Altobelli, and her parents, John Altobelli and Carrie, were also on the helicopter. So we know 5 of the 9 people. There are still 4 people who are unidentified at this point, but we believe that they were teammates and friends of Gigi's flying to this basketball game. This was a team that a lot of the kids were from Southern California, where Kobe Bryant and his family lived, and they were traveling up to the sports complex to play, as they did often. John Altobelli, the father of the other daughter, the teammate of Gigi's, is a well-known baseball coach in Southern California. They have roots here in the region and the area as well. So we're waiting to find out who the other 4 people are, but it's another family that lost 3 members of their family. The Bryants lost both a 13-year-old daughter and their father, Kobe Bryant. So they're Vanessa Bryant and their 3 other daughters are mourning the loss of 2 people, and the Altobellis are mourning the loss of 3 people right now.
Are you a basketball fan? Were you a Kobe Bryant fan?
I grew up watching Kobe Bryant, here in the United States. He was a legend. I was talking to somebody else just a short while ago here, and I'm of the age where Michael Jordan was sort of the basketball player. But the only person that you would put in that category from my point of view is Kobe Bryant. They competed at the same level. Kobe Bryant was chasing Michael Jordan's 6 NBA crowns. He ended up with 5, of course. For people in their 30s, Kobe Bryant really was the basketball star, even before LeBron, and probably for the generation right after Michael Jordan that saw him as sort of the guy. But I heard an interview earlier today with somebody saying that the measuring stick for greatness in the NBA was basically Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Oscar Robertson, Wilt Chamberlain, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That was it. Obviously, you had the category now of LeBron James, but that's the company Kobe Bryant was in. It's a select few. Maybe he wasn't the greatest, but he was definitely in the small group of the 5 greatest basketball players ever.
I suppose it is terribly sad what's happened today, but Kobe Bryant's career hasn't been without its controversy, though, has it?
No, and I mean, listen, you hear a lot of people talking about Kobe Bryant and the life that he was leading with his 4 daughters and his dedication to their lives and their careers, and a lot of that is because of the problems that he had in Colorado during the early part of his career. He was accused of rape or sexual assault. He was found not guilty and essentially, I think, settled. And that has always been a stain on his sort of reputation. But it is pretty amazing to see how he had bounced back from that. Corporate America, after that, left him. He lost his McDonald's sponsorships. But those all came back, and he became a global force in terms of marketing. He was the face of Turkish Airways for a lot of years as well, and McDonald's, and he won Olympic gold medals. I mean, he was a global brand unto himself. But since he left the NBA, retired, he had really dedicated his life to his 4 daughters and to his family. And it was just last night that LeBron James passed him on the all-time scoring list. So LeBron is now 3rd, and Kobe Bryant is now 4th. And that game was played in Philadelphia. And I asked somebody, I said, was Kobe Bryant at that game? Kobe's from Philadelphia. LeBron's passing him as a Laker. And they said, no, he was with his daughters. That's where he wanted to be. And I think that's one of the things, his post-career was very much about his family here in Los Angeles. And a lot of that has to do with, the incident in Colorado a lot of years ago.
So what happens now, Connor?
Well, we're waiting for some type of initial report from the investigators, from the FAA and the NTSB. Hopefully with the Sheriff's Department, we'll get at least a rough idea of what happened, whether it was rain and weather or whether or not it was something mechanical. But we're also waiting to find out who the 4 other people were. And it's a lot of grieving. The Staples Center where the Lakers play is packed right now with people. Across the NBA tonight, there are tributes at all of the games, and the Lakers and the Clippers, the other team here in Los Angeles, they actually play on Tuesday night here in Los Angeles. So that's going to be a big, big game. I think you're going to see for the next 72 hours just a lot of scenes of people mourning, people paying tribute to Kobe Bryant. He touched a lot of people. I mean, you've seen Barack Obama, you've seen Donald Trump, you've seen athletes and celebrities all pay tribute to him. This is a guy who was an icon in a city of celebrities. That's how important he was to Los Angeles, and that's, how famous he was around the world.
And that's CNN reporter Connor Powell, who has been at that crash site near Calabasas today. And we are getting a lot of feedback from you on our coverage of Kobe Bryant's death and that accident. Some of you don't agree with us running that story. But this one on the other side of the coin, they say Kobe Bryant is a role model and inspiring sports figure for many young people. That's a key reason why we care about his death. He touched the lives of many young people. Perhaps those who think the story isn't worth covering are not globally connected or connected to our youth. On the issue of Shane Jones, an enormous amount of feedback about this. Now, this is the open letter that a group of mainly women from within Māoridom have sent Shane Jones. They're concerned about the language and tone he used in describing Pania Newton, the activist from the group Soul. This person says Shane Jones is a patronising, arrogant man who needs to use his taringa more than his waha. Rob says, Checkpoint, I agree with everything that Shane Jones said in regards to Pania Newton. She's an upstart and her actions have cost Māori housing. She needs to get a job and start working. Another person, though, says, I come from Devon. A usual greeting is, hello, my flower. Jones is a weed, that person says. As a Pākehā, I cannot comment on issues of mana, but as a woman, I know that men who want to denigrate strong women often try to objectify them. As for Pania Newton pleasing Pākehā, I wish my culture was welcoming efforts to protect sacred whenua, but we sadly have a long way to go. That was from Catherine Delahunty. Mike Scott has also been in touch, and Mike says Shane Jones's remarks about Pania Newton are wrong. He should apologise. And this person says, Shane Jones was not being sexist at all. I call my husband and daughter my flowers, and they both love it. But another person says, if mana is derived from actions, then Shane has